Welcome into Off the Hook Sports. I am your host, Caleb Calhoun. Dave again is off today after we had a big day covering SEC Media Days yesterday. We got a lot to get to talk about what happened yesterday and a lot of things that happened as the Vols took this stage. We're going to talk about what they said with Joey Aguilar. That was the real story. A couple of acknowledgments that kind of shocked me with Joey Aguilar. We're going to get to that. Also, is Tennessee closer as a unit after Nico Iamaleav's departure? Kind of looks like they might be. We're going to get to that. Josh Heupel discussed the Geron McCoy injury. That's a bit of a bank on it because does that mean McCoy's not going to play at the start of the season? We're going to dive into exactly what he said. There's some interesting things that he pointed out there. Seth Littrell. Josh Heupel gave a revealing quote about Seth Littrell that makes me think Seth Littrell's in line for the Tennessee football offensive coordinator job. And we're going to discuss that. That'll be a second bank on it. Yes, we got two bank on it today. Also, Kirby Smart hasn't named a starting quarterback yet. What the H? That'll be by Rick Terry Jewelry. Yeah, that's right. I thought Gunnar Stockton was locked in, but Kirby Smart doesn't seem to think so. And we'll close with some Arch Manning, who made a few comments that are very intriguing. So, again, smash that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn your notifications on, tell a friend. We are building something great here at Off the Hook Sports. We want you to be a part of it. We're having a lot of fun doing so, and we're about to get rolling with today's tough question live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Today's tough question is right now. Is Tennessee closer as a unit after Nico Iamaleava's departure? And that is today's tough question, brought to you by Banks & Jones, banksandjones.com. Today's tough question deals with what was said on Tuesday as the Vols took the stage at SEC Media Days. A few things happened. So Tennessee took the stage at SEC Media Days, and they basically, Bryson Eason, Arian Carter, and Josh Heupel were all there, okay, and along with Miles Kitselman. One of the most revealing things, and the elephant in the room, obviously, was going to be what was said about losing Nico Iamaleava, because remember, this is kind of the first time Tennessee has actually had an official media session since the departure of Nico Iamaleava. And truth be told, it was kind of revealing. Bryson Eason said, quote, "If anybody is sweeping us under the rug and thinks we're going to be mediocre just because we lost Nico, that's cool. Let him think that way. There's more than one person on the field. You know what I'm saying?" Miles Kitselman added, quote, "As a ball player, it's next play. Whatever happened the last play, it doesn't matter. Let's go make a play right now." And I think that totally translates over to life and translates over to that situation in reference to Nico. It was like, okay, he's gone. It is what it is. Let's plug and replace. Who are we going to bring in? Nobody's bigger than the team. And if they don't want to be here, that's awesome, because we're going to bring somebody in that does want to be here. I just love it how we truly do have this chip on our shoulder, and that there's not a whole lot of spotlight on us right now. There's a lot of people that don't expect anything out of us, and I absolutely love that you guys are going to look up at midseason and go, Tennessee is 7-0. They're doing it. Yes, Miles Kitselman said they would be 7-0 midseason. Josh Heupel added that expectations haven't changed. He said, quote, "The media's expectations certainly changed. Ours did not. I think how you work can either give you a hope or belief or an expectation to actually go make that happen. And our guys expect to win." So with all of that being said, and with everything we saw yesterday, this is today's tough question, brought to you by Banks & Jones. And I'm making it the poll question now. Is Tennessee closer as a team with Nico Iamaleava? And you guys can vote. It's just a simple yes or no. And you guys give me your take. Is Tennessee closer as a team without Nico Iamaleava? I think with all this being said, I think yes. I think they're closer as a team. I think they're closer as a unit. Now, are they better? That's a different question. Okay, closeness is a factor. Chemistry is a factor, but just being better is another factor. And we'll talk about Joey Aguilar in a second, but I also think that Tennessee will be better with Joey Aguilar than they were last year with Nico Iamaleava. But as I guys have told you for a while, I think they will not be as good as they would have been had Nico Iamaleava stayed from a pure production perspective. From a closeness perspective, though, I do believe they will actually be closer as a team without Nico Iamaleava. Can't guarantee it, but it's definitely a strong possibility. So with that in mind, you guys go ahead and vote on the poll question. Give me your thoughts. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
All right, the poll question up: is Tennessee closer as a team without Nico Iamaleava? Man, I gotta be smarter about the poll questions I put up. You guys are 100% yes. 12 votes. 100% of you are all saying yes. They are closer as a team without Nico Iamaleava. I should have seen that coming. You know what? It kind of reminds me of, to a certain degree, and Nico's. I think there's a couple of things that play into this. I think that Tennessee, to be fair, was dealing with distractions of Nico always negotiating for more money and things like that, wanting the offense to change a little bit for him. I think his dad being around the program was a bit of a problem, was a big problem. I think it drove a wedge between the teammates. I think the teammates liked Nico Iamaleava. I'm going to be honest. I think Nico Iamaleava had a good relationship with the teammates. But I think all of the other distractions, getting his dad getting involved and all the stuff they were hearing in the news, I think created way too many issues for the team as a whole. And I think that's a huge reason for why Tennessee honestly would be closer without Nico Iamaleava. Sometimes it's not always on the person. I'm going to give you guys an example. The 98 team, I'll just tell you, I think they got closer without Peyton Manning. And it's not Peyton Manning's fault. Peyton Manning was the all-world #1 draft pick. They had the Heisman campaign in 97. He should have won the Heisman that year. But I think sometimes when all that hype is around one player, I think it keeps the team from being as close as they should. And then I think after Peyton Manning left, after Marcus Nash left, after Leonard Little left, I think without any true superstars on that team, at least proven superstars going into 98, they got really close as a unit. And the result was what you saw, a national championship. Now, that team was still loaded with stars. Don't get me wrong. The team had talent out the wazoo. Our own Jimmy Hyams picked them to go 11-1 going into 98 when everybody else was picking like 8-4, 9-3, something like that. So you have to give a lot of credit to that team you have to give a lot of credit to the talent on that team. I don't think this Tennessee team is that talented. I think they're good. They're not on the 98 level, but I do think the closeness could allow them to actually play better than their 10-2 record was last year. Now the schedule's harder. Because I think as a non-conference game, I actually think Syracuse is tougher than NC State. I also think that going to Alabama and going to Florida is tougher than facing them both at home. Also, Alabama will certainly be better. Florida could be better. Now, Georgia, we're going to talk about them later, funny enough, because of a comment by Kirby Smart. Georgia could actually be worse, which is intriguing, but we'll talk about that in a little while. It's kind of, just very interesting about Georgia and their situation. Georgia's actually could be worse. So we'll get to that. But at the same time, Alabama and Florida could be better. So we'll see how that all goes. In general, though, yes, I think Tennessee's closer without Nico Iamaleava. I think the comments yesterday were very revealing. They very much kind of proved that Tennessee was closer without Nico Iamaleava. And again, not on Nico Iamaleava's fault. I think it's highly possible, and this is truth. I think it's very possible that Tennessee as a team would have been closer without Nico Iamaleava even if there wasn't all this drama from the Nico Iamaleava hype. If there wasn't, remember, even before his dad getting involved in all that, there was that Tennessee versus the NCAA situation where they went to bat for Nico Iamaleava, the $2 million a year. All those were out there. That alone could be a distraction and could make you get closer as a unit once you lose those guys. Taking that into account, I just don't think it's a debate. Tennessee as a unit is closer without Nico Iamaleava. and that may make them a better team. And so we'll see how that goes. There's a great General Ursus comes in and says Peyton not being there was the difference. Biggest example is the Arkansas game. If Peyton has been there, the ball would have been put up in the air versus Henry pounding his way for a TD. General Ursus, that's a great point. The other part, and that's actually throughout the whole season. One of the best parts about the 98 team was with Peyton gone, they didn't put as much on him. And it was the Arkansas game at the end. You're right. Travis Henry just running it down their throats. But even before the Arkansas game, the Florida game, they played a very conservative game and let Florida implode with the mistakes that Steve Spurrier would make on the road. And that's how they won that game. Very smart play. So in general, I totally agree with you. All right, let's move on. We got 4 Downs live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. We're going to play a little 4 Downs, and it's about the quarterback that we now expect to replace Nico Maliava. Now, a lot of things were revealed about Joey Aguilar yesterday at SEC Media Days. He became a very hot topic of discussion. We're going to talk about all of those now. 4 Downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford. Joey Aguilar seems to have won over his teammates. Joey Aguilar's teammates seem to love him, and they seem to be very big on his potential with the program. And that was never more evident than what was said about him yesterday, even though Josh Heupel didn't openly name him the starter. And we're going to start with Josh Heupel first. Since I don't have the board, I'll just say it. A message from Cooper Mays. Hit like and subscribe. And now Cooper Mays, first down. Josh Heupel said, quote, "We've had an opportunity to be out there with him throwing a little bit, and fundamentally there's some things that we've hit on with him that he's continuing to grow throughout the course of the summer." This is in reference to Aguilar. Remember, Aguilar transferred to Tennessee from UCLA after Nico transferred to UCLA. Aguilar last year was playing with Appalachian State. Heupel continued. "He's done a great job coming into our program, got there in May, got a chance to go through the installs from spring ball, the second time through it here during the course of the summer. He's growing every single day, but his ability to connect with the guys inside of our roster as a veteran guy coming in, just developing relationships, then earning the trust of those guys by how you approach every single day." But Heupel did not say that there wasn't going to be a quarterback competition. What does this all reveal? It reveals that Heupel's being cagey, I'm pretty sure. And I'm going to give my final take on this, but I actually think Heupel's being cagey, but I think Aguilar is the guy. And I'm going to get to more quotes in a minute about that. But Heupel is making it seem like there's an open competition for quarterback. But that's only, he has to say that because you would lose the team if Aguilar came in and you named him the starter before he's even played one practice, one snap with that team. Okay. He came after spring ball. They're going to give Joey Aguilar the chance in the fall. They're going to give Joey Aguilar the chance in fall camp, and they're going to see what happens then. But Aguilar, I think with Heupel's comments, I think it makes very clear Heupel's all in on Aguilar being the starter. We're just going to have to see how this all plays out. Now, second down from Cooper Mays. How Joey Aguilar, Miles Kitselman, quotes from Miles Kitselman. And this is a big one to me. Kitselman said, quote, "Joey's one of those guys. It's kind of like when you meet somebody and immediately hit it off. You both have the same sense of humor, similar personalities, and it's kind of like you've known each other for a while, and it's something that doesn't really happen a whole lot. First week Joey was on campus, we went out to eat, we hang out. He was like, 'Hey man, you play Fortnite?' I was like, 'Yeah,' and a little bit with our few spare hours that we get. We play Fortnite almost every night. It's just one of those guys that you click with right off the bat. And I think that's super special. I think that's super special." Now, some of you guys will be like, put down the Fortnite and pick up the football. But I'll just say in general, Joey Aguilar, that shows a level of being able to reach out to teammates, and that means a lot. It's a really big deal, particularly on the offensive side. Miles Kitselman is the one returning offensive weapon. There's only 2 returning offensive starters. It's him and Lance Hurd. So Joey Aguilar, honestly, is a really big deal, what they said about him. And honestly, I got to give a lot of credit to Miles Kitselman for saying that. That type of leadership, I think, winning over teammates is a big deal, particularly if Josh Heupel is going to be able to name him the starter. And so we'll see how that goes. Adam goes, "Great, another video gamer." Yes. Now, is Joey Aguilar Kyler Murray, or is he just a great teammate? We don't know. We'll have to see. But it's kind of intriguing how that all played out. I do think that Joey Aguilar is more of just a great teammate. All right. From Cooper Mays again, 3rd down. Arian Carter on defense giving Joey Aguilar a shout out. Quote, when he first got here, I made sure, as being the leader, one of the leaders on the team, I wanted to get with him and made sure we had a clear understanding of the expectations set for him, but the expectations he should have for us, and to make sure we don't waver from those. Once we got all that figured out, being able to sit down with him, we all had an occasional meal with the quarterbacks and linebackers and special teams. Just having a guy like that in your room and having a guy like that in your building is such a great opportunity that we have. He's such a smart guy, very poised, very calm, collected dude that I wouldn't change anything for the world to have him on our team, alongside my other 2 young quarterbacks that he's able to go coach up with George McIntyre and Jake Merklinger. He mentioned McIntyre Merklinger, but he basically said that it's Aguilar's room and Aguilar's leading the room. And Arian Carter, by the way, that was a very mature statement. Arian Carter is one of the greatest leaders on this team. I mean, there's nothing negative I can say about Arian Carter, just one of the greatest of all time. And when you take that into account, what Arian Carter is saying speaks to incredible levels of Joey Aguilar's maturity and just how good he can be. So major props to Arian Carter, and major props to Joey Aguilar for winning Carter's respect as a player. I think Arian Carter is, again, one of the most mature players on this football team, one of the most mature players we will have seen in a while. There's a reason he was a junior at SEC Media Days. And remember, there were a lot of senior players that could have been brought to Media Days this year. So for Arian Carter to be brought as a junior speaks to him. And for him to say that about Joey Aguilar, that's a really big deal. It sounds like not, because he didn't just say, I love Joey and I love and I love George McIntyre and I love Jake. No, he said for Joey to be able to coach up the other quarterbacks, George and Jake. So he's already looking at Joey Aguilar as a leader. It seems like Joey Aguilar has won over the team. 4th down coming up in a second. First, a quick message from Ted Russell Ford.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super Savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 Volume 4 dealer. Employee pricing is here. You pay what we pay on all new Ford models. Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
4th down from Cooper Mays is a quote from Bryson Eason. Eason says, quote, about Joey Aguilar, off the field, I would say he's a very down-to-earth person. Nothing cocky about him. Nothing arrogant about him. Just a real down-to-earth human who is really to come into a program and help them out. On the field-wise, I feel like he's a worker. Comes to work every day, has a mission, ready to get better in every aspect he can, and wants to bring along those guys with him so everybody can elevate and get better. I feel like overall, he's just a great dude. Now, as a defensive lineman, Bryson Eason is going to have the least amount of connections and interaction with Joey Aguilar probably as a quarterback. Although he is going to try to hit Joey Aguilar. I take that back. He's going to have a lot of connections, but it's going to be trying to hit him in practice, not necessarily trying to work with him. Aguilar being down to earth and nothing cocky, that's not what I saw from him on the field. And I'm not saying this in a negative way. He's got some moxie. He's a gunslinger. That shows a little cockiness, but maybe he's humble off the field and cocky on the field. You like that moxie. If you talk about what Josh Heupel is installing for Aguilar, there's a lot of reasons to believe in Aguilar long-term to be able to be a very successful quarterback for Tennessee. So we're going to have to see how that all plays out. But in general, yeah, I think that off the field, Joey Aguilar being a very down-to-earth person doesn't really shock me, but I would be a little bit shocked at the idea that he's not cocky. I mean, he's somebody that, given what they're saying, you would expect him to be cocky. So we don't know how that all plays out, but in general, Joey Aguilar overall is somebody who seems to have very much won over this team. That was a big concern. And the reason it was a big concern is because he's a spring portal pickup. I think many players who are close with Merklinger and McIntyre would have preferred to work with one of them as the starter after Iamaleava left. But adding Aguilar, I think, makes it, you wonder if it was a Brent Schaefer, Ed Orgeron situation where Ed Orgeron added a guy, named him the starter, and then lost the team completely at Ole Miss in 2006, or even Joe Milton with Josh Heupel. But it seems like Aguilar has been winning over the team, and they're just going to have to see how he performs in practice. So smash that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn your notifications on. Again, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. We are live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville. New and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. When we come back, we're going to talk about a couple of comments specifically by Josh Heupel at SEC Media Days yesterday that really stood out to me. One on Geron McCoy, one on Seth Littrell. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the hook sports.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
Hello, ma'am. I'm here to look at that plumbing problem.
Oh boy. Yep. You're gonna need a whole new sink.
If this toilet is no good,
You're gonna need a new one ASAP.
you are not gonna believe this. You're all out of milk. Have you heard about our service plan?
I need to call Scott's.
Scott's Plumbing, your trusted neighborhood plumber since 1977.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Welcome back to the program. Recapping Tennessee at SEC Media Days on Tuesday. A lot happened, and let's continue our coverage now. We'll get to it with Josh Heupel and Geron McCoy. There's some interesting stories on that. Josh Heupel made a revealing comment on Geron McCoy's injury that I think is going to be concerning for a lot of Tennessee football fans. Heupel, when asked about Geron McCoy, said, I think with the injury and his rehab process, it's how he encounters the next phase and the next stage as he continues to prepare himself and get ready to play. I saw him the other day, and he's going through his rehab. He looks really good. His moving skills are good. It's a progression throughout the course of the end of the summer and through training camp. We'll figure that out as we get into the season. Keep in mind, obviously, we want him. He's a huge part of us defensively, but a short-term and long-term health as well. Very, very revealing comment by Josh Heupel right there. Because the revealing comment is that they do actually expect, I guess you could say, Geron McCoy to be somewhat healthy, but we don't know how healthy. This is going to bring us to Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Hot or Cold, City Heating and Air Conditioning. I think Joey Aguilar was going to be. I think Geron McCoy is not going to be ready to go into the season. Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. With Joey Aguilar not ready to go into the season, it's time to play who will be able to step into that role. And I want to tell you if I'm hot or if I'm cold on this guy being able to play the number 1 cornerback role for Tennessee. So let's get rolling. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. CityHeatandAir.com. Geron McCoy being out. Well, let's play hot or cold on this first. Hot or cold on who will be the top number 1 cornerback for Tennessee at the start of the year. First, Geron McCoy. Are we hot or cold on him? I'm cold. I think based on what was said, what Josh Heupel said, I think it's pretty clear now that Geron McCoy will not be 100% at the start of the season. And when you take that into account, you got to be cold on him. I think that Geron McCoy will not be ready to go at the start of the season. Now, Sam Schrock says, I literally got nothing from that quote. Sam, the moment that he said that stood out to me was when Heupel said, we'll figure that out as we get into the season. That's the line. Why do you have to get into the season? That basically, to me, makes it pretty clear that Geron McCoy won't be 100% in September. And I mean, who would expect that? He tore his ACL in January. So, I mean, he's going to need a little more time. So I'm cold on Geron McCoy being the number 1 cornerback in September. Ricky Gibson III. I'm cold on Ricky Gibson III being the number 1 cornerback in September. Why? Because I think he's a number 2 guy. I think Ricky Gibson held out for a little bit more money in the offseason, and I think he got it. But I think spring ball happened, and the coaches realized that he can't really be the number 1 guy. I think they realized that's just not what he can do. He's a good situational cornerback who can guard and part of his system, and that may be enough, by the way, for him to be able to play even in the NFL. I mean, I think Richard Sherman couldn't be a number 1 cornerback, but you can be a very successful number 2 cornerback if you have the right help around you and guarding the right receiver. I think that's Ricky Gibson's move. I think that's where he's always going to be. I just don't think he can guard the number 1 guy. And I think that part was very, very, very clear with what was said about Gibson, or with how Tennessee handled Gibson during the offseason. And the biggest reason I think that's evident is hot or cold. Who is next? Colton Hood, the Colorado transfer. After spring, we haven't seen him yet. He didn't practice with the team in spring practice, but he was in line to replace Travis Hunter last year. After last year, he was in line to replace Travis Hunter going into this year. And now it looks like it might be a stronger possibility that he will do that. Taking that into account, am I hot or cold on Colton Hood? I'm hot on Colton Hood. I think Colton Hood will be the number 1 cornerback with Geron McCoy out. I think Colton Hood is going to be able to fill that role somewhat admirably. I don't think he'll be as good as McCoy. It could cause Tennessee problems when they play Georgia, but I think that's Tennessee's best chance is to go with Colton Hood. I think they're very high on Colton Hood going forward. And if you guys remember, Colton Hood for Colorado last year, to his credit, did have 2 interceptions. He was just a true freshman, well, just a redshirt freshman, had 24 total tackles, 20 solo tackles, assisted on another 4, and had 2 interceptions as the number 2 cornerback. He also has SEC experience as he played at Auburn in 2023, had 3 solo tackles there, didn't do anything else. He redshirted. He officially took a redshirt that year before he played at Colorado. This is his 3rd team in 3 years, but at the same time, I think he knows that Tennessee needs him. He comes out of Georgia. I think he's got a lot of real potential and a lot of raw talent. I think Colton Hood is the guy who will replace Geron McCoy as the number 1 cornerback. Will he be as good? No, but Tennessee did strike gold by landing McCoy last year at Oregon State, but McCoy was a freshman All-American. There was a lot more potential behind McCoy than there was behind Hood. I mean, again, even being expected to fill the void of Travis Hunter, how good is Travis Hunter really? So that's another question that we have to point out. Was just being a 2-way player what made him a Hall of Fame, a Heisman winner last year? We don't really know, and that's kind of what stands out to me about Colton Hood. So I'm setting up the poll question now, which is who will be Tennessee's number 1 cornerback in September? And you guys can vote on it. Here's how we're going to say it. We're going to say Geron McCoy, despite injury, Ricky Gibson III, let's see, Colton Hood, or somebody else. And I'm going to name a few more somebody else's in a second who could maybe be the shocker as the number 1 cornerback. First, stick with us, hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's your pair. All right, so a few other players who could be on this list. And one of the questions about Colton Hood, too, I want to go back to that real quick, is Colton Hood hasn't been tested as much playing at Colorado because he played against Big 12 competition and he didn't play much when he was at Auburn. So now going to the other names. Could Boo Carter move into the number one cornerback spot? I'm hot on that possibility, guys. Y'all know I love Boo. He wants to be Travis Hunter this year. What better way to do that than to move him to the number one cornerback spot while Geron McCoy tries to get healthy, and then you move Colton Hood or Ricky Gibson over to nickel? It's possible. Jordan Thomas, he can alternate between nickel and corner and safety. No, I'm cold on that. I think Jordan Thomas will be back at safety. He's technically not listed as that in the depth chart yet. He's technically considered another nickel, but I think he's the main safety. Jalen McMurray, I'm cold on that. McMurray is a situational cornerback, a utility cornerback, could play nickel as a veteran, but he can't guard the number one guy. So it comes down to Hood, McCoy, or Carter, I think are the top three. The poll question, who will be Tennessee's number one cornerback in September? 17% say Geron McCoy despite injury, 33% say Ricky Gibson III, 33% say Colton Hood, and 17% say somebody else. Who's with me, baby? Boo. Boo Carter for number one cornerback. Boo Carter for Heisman. Let's roll. We're going to push it. I'm telling you it's going to happen. I've been high on him from the start. I think he's ready to go. What if Boo Carter leads the team in interceptions and receiving this year? It's probably not going to happen. I'm just messing with you guys. But I do think it's highly possible that Boo Carter could slide into a cornerback role and somebody else play nickel until Geron McCoy gets fully healthy. All right, moving on. Another comment from Josh Heupel at SEC Media Days. And man, this is a big one. This one really, really, really stands out, guys. Josh Heupel talked about Seth Littrell, who was hired as an analyst at Tennessee. He's not an on-field role, by the way. He was fired by Oklahoma last year, and his offense is blamed for why Brent Venables enters this year on the hot seat at Oklahoma. However, Josh Heupel, this is coach speak, but maybe I'm reading a little bit more into this. Said, quote, for Seth, somebody that I've played with, got great trust in. He's the kind of guy that's going to be clear in his communication to me. All right. I'm going to go ahead and read Seth Littrell's profile, and I'm going to tell you guys something that might be a little bit hot takey, but I think it's possible. Seth Littrell, for those who don't remember, before he was Oklahoma's offensive coordinator and then kind of got canned, he was an offensive analyst for them in 2023. He was head coach at North Texas from 2016 to 2022, went 44-44, did win the division title, did win his division in the Conference USA twice, but never went any further than that. He was fired after a 7-6 season in 2022. And to be fair, they haven't had a winning season since. They went 5-7 and 6-7 after Seth Littrell was fired. Before he was at North Texas, Seth Littrell was the assistant head coach and offensive coordinator at North Carolina under Larry Fedora. He served as offensive coordinator at Indiana in 2012 and 2013. He was an offensive coordinator at Arizona in 2010 and 2011. And before that, he had been a running back at Oklahoma, where he won a national title playing with Josh Heupel, was a grad assistant at Kansas under Mark Mangino, then worked under Texas Tech as the running backs coach from 2005 to 2008. So Heupel and him have the exact same ties because Heupel played under Mike Leach and then Mark Mangino, and Seth Littrell coached and played under both of them too, and then coached under Mark Mangino and Mike Leach, funny enough. And that really stands out. The reason all of this is relevant is Seth Littrell brings the air raid side of Josh Heupel's veer and shoot offense to him. But with Seth Littrell's backstory, and you don't see this a lot with the running backs coach, but I might go here. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank. Member FDIC, life made better. Bank on it. Josh Heupel is setting up Seth Littrell to replace Joey Halzle as his offensive coordinator. Bank on it.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
All right, that's right. That was Bank on It by Commercial Bank. I think Seth Littrell is in line to be Tennessee's offensive coordinator. Now, some things that will concern people is, let's be honest, Oklahoma's offense was god-awful last year. I mean, it was god-awful. And yes, an offensive coordinator, even in bad situations, you would expect to be able to have more success than Oklahoma had. I mean, they were 97th in points per game at 24. It was absolutely atrocious. They only averaged 331 yards of total offense. Jackson Arnold ended up transferring. He's now at Auburn for the quote-unquote fresh start, which he talked about yesterday, funny enough. Oklahoma's offense was horrid. It was an embarrassment to watch, okay? I think that at the same time, Seth Littrell has enough experience and enough pizzazz and confidence to add a little more creativity to the offense than Joey Halzle does. Let's point this out, and we've pointed this out a lot. What's the difference between Joey Halzle and Alex Golesh? What's the big difference? It's actually not the offensive scheme. That's Josh Heupel's offensive scheme. What does he want his offensive coordinator to do? To run his scheme, just basically it's a delegated task to run what he wants, but also add in a little pizzazz with some creativity with a few scripted plays here and there. That's what Jeff Lebby was so good at. That's what Alex Golesh was so good at. Joey Halzle knows no creativity whatsoever, doesn't add anything to that. Seth Littrell, given his experience, many years as an offensive coordinator, many years as a head coach, he can script some plays. And because of that, I think Heupel does want him in that role. Now, right now, that's what Seth Littrell is doing as an analyst. He's going to script the plays for Heupel, while Halzle is going to be the offensive coordinator. But I think Heupel would love to ease Seth Littrell in. Heupel, at the same time, though, is a very, very decent and respectful person and doesn't want to do to an offensive coordinator what was done to him. And he's also arrogant, so he doesn't want to turn on an offensive coordinator he chose to promote, which he did with Joey Halzle. So how do I think this is going to work out? Here's what Heupel's plan is, and here's what Heupel's hoping. Heupel hopes that with Seth Littrell scripting plays and Joey Halzle just running Heupel's offense, Joey Halzle will be the next Alex Golesh, or look like it, because it'll be his offense coordinator technically, and that'll get him a head coaching job somewhere. Then Heupel can move Seth Littrell into that role without having to fire anybody. That's the ultimate idea behind this, is Heupel wants to be able to move Seth Littrell into his offensive coordinator role without having to fire anybody. I'm going to set that up as a poll question. Who will be Tennessee's number one cornerback in September? 24% say Geron McCoy despite injury, 20% say Ricky Gibson III, 40% say Colton Hood, and 8% say somebody else. So now we're going to move on. Is Josh Heupel planning to eventually make Seth Littrell OC? Yes or no? You guys vote on that. That's the poll question. I don't see how anybody could say that he's not trying to make Seth Littrell his offensive coordinator. I think it's honestly very obvious that he wants Seth Littrell to be his offensive coordinator. And just to go back to Golesh real quick, Derek is right. Tight end wrinkles were coming from Alex. You're absolutely right. They were. And one of the things about Littrell, by the way, who was also a running backs and tight ends coach, Alex Golesh was a tight ends coach, which is shocking to a lot of people. You expect your offensive coordinators to be quarterbacks coaches, and Jeff Lebby was a successful quarterbacks coach for Josh Heupel. But Jeff Lebby also had experience coaching tight ends getting into the business. Josh Heupel himself was a tight ends coach for a minute. One of the reasons that's kind of intriguing is Halzle just has experience coaching quarterbacks. When you just do that, you just think about calling plays from a quarterback perspective and a scheme from a quarterback perspective, which does fine, by the way, for many offensive coordinators. But it does limit the wrinkles you want to throw into your offense. Coaching other positions helps you a lot with the wrinkles. And Jeff Lebby did coach running backs for a while too. Now, I'm not big on naming running backs, offensive coordinators, running backs coaches. I mean, they don't really, most of running backs coaches just recruit. But in the Art Briles Vera offense, which Jeff Lebby was running, or was part of, excuse me, as a running back coach, you are understanding things from a more creativity perspective. And I think that adds a lot to the table. And look, I mean, take some of the best offensive coordinators you could even think of. David Cutcliffe, yes, he was Tennessee's offensive coordinator, and he was very successful, and he had coached quarterbacks for 3 years before moving into that role. However, he had also coached running backs. And actually, for those who don't know, does anybody know the longest tenured role David Cutcliffe had at Tennessee? It was from 1983 to 1988 when he was the tight ends coach. And he was also the special teams coach. So the creativity was a huge part of why David Cutcliffe was so successful. He could see the field from so many different roles. Joey Halsley really and truly only sees it from the quarterback role because that's all he's been. He was backup quarterback at Oklahoma from 2006 to 2008 when Heupel was the quarterback's coach there. Then he was a quality control coach, seeing things from the quarterback perspective. Then he was a grad assistant. And then his only on-field roles, 2015, quarterback's coach at Utah State, 2016, quarterback's coach at Missouri, private sector for 2 years, 2019, quarterback's coach at UCF, 2020, quarterback's coach at UCF, 2021 through 2022, quarterback's coach at Tennessee, and then became the offensive coordinator. He's held no other roles. That's kind of a big deal. That's why I think Heupel brought in Seth Littrell to begin with, and I think he wants to ease Seth Littrell in to be the offensive coordinator. Smash that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn your notifications on, tell a friend. When we come back, we're going to talk about some other things that happened at SEC Media Days yesterday, most notably, Kirby Smart hasn't named a starting quarterback yet. What the H? Stick with us, 2 minutes off the hook sports.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Hello, ma'am. Here to look at that plumbing problem? Oh boy. Yep. You're gonna need a whole new sink. If this toilet is no good, you're gonna need a new one ASAP.
You are not gonna believe this.
You're all out of milk.
Have you heard about our service plan?
I need to call Scott's.
Scott's Plumbing, your trusted neighborhood plumber since 1977.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Caleb Calhoun here. The show brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. We are still live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used. East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Tennessee wasn't the only school that took the stage at SEC Media Days on Tuesday. Kirby Smart in Georgia took the stage Tuesday at SEC Media Days as well. When Kirby Smart and Georgia took the stage at SEC Media Days in Atlanta on Tuesday, Kirby Smart made a very revealing comment that I don't think any of us saw coming, honestly. And that is, he kind of made it clear that there's an open competition for the starting job at Georgia. So for those who don't remember, Ryan Puglisi was a 4-star freshman who just committed to Georgia this past year in the 2025 recruiting class, I believe. Sorry, in the not in the 2025 recruiting class. Excuse me. Somebody correct me on that. I believe it's the 2024 recruiting class. Yes, a 4-star who committed in the 2024 recruiting class out of Texas. Kirby Smart went with Gunnar Stockton last year after Carson Beck got hurt. Carson Beck got hurt in the SEC championship game, and then Kirby Smart went with Gunnar Stockton to win that game, and then they lost their playoff game to Notre Dame in an upset with Gunnar Stockton. Carson Beck, as we know, transferred to Miami, and we all thought they were going to go with Gunnar Stockton. Now, I wasn't a fan of Gunnar Stockton. I think there were a lot of big concerns about Gunnar Stockton, particularly in that Notre Dame game. Playing with Georgia last year, he did complete technically 70% of his passes for 440 yards, but only 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And against Notre Dame, very pedestrian. I mean, we're talking a 47.5 total QBR, despite a 134.2 quarterback rating, only 7 yards per attempt, completed 20 of 32 passes for 234 yards and a touchdown. Against Texas, by the way, 12 of 16, for 71 yards, 75% completion rate, but only 4.4 yards per an attempt and 1 interception. Yards per attempt matters to me a lot more than completion percentage or total yards. And honestly, that was a bad look for Gunnar Stockton, despite his technical efficiency in that game. However, I still thought they were going to go with Gunnar Stockton. But Kirby Smart made a comment that suggests something else, and it's What the H, brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. Kirby Smart was asked about Gunnar Stockton and did praise him in his leadership. He said, quote, "He's prepared every game as if he was the starter. People can say that and say that's coach speak, but he actually did it. He went in, watched extra tape, and he knew that at any point in time he could be called up to go into the game and play." Smart defended his issues last year because he said, quote, "He didn't play in a normal environment where you've got a big lead. Maybe you're beating an opponent. He went in against the top defense in the country and one of the biggest games of the season and performed well for a guy that had not gotten a lot of reps with the starters. So I thought he handled that moment well. And he taught a lot of our young players that you've got to be prepared and ready." That was in reference to the SEC title game in Atlanta. And Smart brought Stockton, by the way, and then said this was a message about leadership. He separated himself as a great leader of the team, and you try to bring people here that can affect others. He's done that in spring practice. However, after that, and this is the What the H, Kirby Smart says, quote, "The starting job isn't necessarily a layup for Stockton." I'm sorry, the starting job is not necessarily a layup for Stockton. Kirby Smart says, quote, "Ryan Puglisi is doing an awesome job." No, he says Ryan is doing awesome too. Ryan and Stockton are going to be competing for everything they do. Gunnar knows he's got to go out and play well. Stockton, for his part, added about the differences that come with starting. He said, quote, "It's just a different role. I get more attention in Athens, getting pictures and stuff like that, but that comes with the role and just being more vocal with the team and just enjoying it. I've enjoyed the process so far, and I can't wait for this season. I'm really excited." Why hasn't Kirby Smart fully named Gunnar Stockton the starter? You brought him with you to SEC Media Days. You chose him to finish the season last year. You touted him as the leader. Stockton is talking about what life is like as a starter. Why did Kirby Smart not name Gunnar Stockton the starter? That is What the H. It is brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Designs.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
All right, you guys go ahead and vote on the poll question. I said, why didn't Kirby Smart definitively say Gunnar Stockton is the starter, is Georgia's starter at QB? And you can say he doesn't believe in him at heart or coach speak. Yeah, that's right. I said coach speak. And it looks like a lot of you guys are saying you believe it's somewhat coach speak. Highly possible. But I think it's also highly possible that he doesn't believe in Gunnar Stockton at heart. Gunnar Stockton, again, did not play that well in those two games last year. At the same time, they could have a situation like Tennessee, where, like Tennessee, the team is closer without Carson Beck, who is out there, flashing his money in his Lambos and things like that. Losing Carson Beck could bring Georgia closer together the way losing Nico Iamaleava brought Tennessee closer together. The problem at the same time, though, was Georgia lost Carson Beck in the season, and it didn't bode well for them in the SEC title game or the college football playoff. Okay, I know they won the SEC title game. They didn't look great doing it after Gunnar Stockton came in, and I know he was 12 of 16, but I do think he was way too much of a game manager in that situation. So with that in mind, could Georgia have a quarterback controversy at the start of the year? Now, going through Georgia's schedule real quick, they don't have an easy start to the season. If they don't figure out their quarterback situation, and also to your credit, Blind Squirrel Sports, you talk about it, and you're right, you said your biggest concern is Georgia's offensive line more than Gunnar. Well, what if their offensive line is an issue? And what if Gunnar's not ready to play? I mean, they play at Tennessee, third game of the year. Now, all things being equal, I still think Georgia's way above Tennessee talent-wise, even to this day. But I said this is Tennessee's best chance to beat Georgia because it's at Tennessee, and it's early in the year where Georgia's got a lot of youth and a lot of things they got to work out. So this is the first year Tennessee's played Georgia where Georgia's in a situation where they can make enough mistakes to lose the game, if that's fair to say. And that's where Tennessee-Georgia is so interesting. And if that happens, they got to bye, yes, but then they come back out and they got to play Alabama. And I know that game's at home, and I know they're coming off a bye, but I told you guys, I think Alabama's going to be really, really good this year. I think we are really underrating how good Alabama's going to be, and it's not like Alabama's not coming off a bye. They're coming off a bye for that game too. So Georgia could very well be 2-2 coming out of September, which would be a disaster. They still have Texas down the pike on their schedule. Lucky for them, Texas is at home. They have Ole Miss. Lucky for them, Ole Miss is at home, but Ole Miss did beat them last year. So it's not like the schedule gets easier. And if they're 2-2 coming out of September, now teams of Georgia stature, they're not going to quit on the season anymore at 2-2 because the college football playoff is still in play, even with a 2-2 start. So if they do that and they went out and beat Ole Miss, win at Auburn, beat Florida, at Mississippi State and Texas, and then make sure they beat Georgia Tech, who could be a lot better this year after Brent Key seems to somewhat be building up that program, then yes, you could say that maybe Georgia Tech is going, you could say that maybe Georgia is going to be fine. But a 2-2 start is on the table, guys. And the poll question is out. Why didn't Kirby Smart definitively say Gunnar Stockton is Georgia starter? Well, you guys don't agree with me, do you? Only 15% of you say he doesn't believe in him at heart, but 85% of you are saying coach speak. And so that's kind of interesting, the whole way that plays. Blind Squirrel Sports, I know you're a Georgia fan, so I want to get to you. You say special teams and poor offensive line play had a lot to do with the Notre Dame loss, and then you said then we're in more trouble than I can fathom. Yeah, look, Blind Squirrel Sports, that's the thing. Georgia's loaded with talent overall, and you're right, poor offensive line play was a big deal in that Notre Dame loss. But Gunnar Stockton was efficient, but not great in those two games. His completion percentage is very overrated because of how many easy throws he was making. Again, 4.5 yards per an attempt, even against Texas, is just a big concern if you're Georgia. I think Kirby Smart made a mistake not fully all out naming Gunnar Stockton the starter. I think he clearly is. So why didn't he? You got to think that's a bit of a concern. So we'll see how that plays out. Another quarterback situation with the other Empire School of the SEC this year, of the favorites to probably win it, involves Arch Manning. We're going to talk about him next. First, stick with us 2 minutes. Off the Hook Sports.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super Savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Employee pricing is here. You pay what we pay on all new Ford models. Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare. Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Hit that like and subscribe button. I am Caleb Calhoun. We close today's show with Arch Manning, who was at SEC Media Days on Tuesday. Texas Longhorns quarterback Arch Manning was at SEC Media Days on Tuesday and gave everybody a masterclass on how to be a Manning. What does it mean to be a Manning? You carry yourself like you have been involved in the SEC football world since the beginning of time, no matter how young you are. Arch Manning is very clearly one of the most mature people I have ever seen, and he should be, by the way, because he's a Manning, and he's the third generation of a Manning. Now, the big question you always have with players, I've always said this, working in media, when you cover business people, legacy people, third generation is always a generation where they fall apart. What do I mean by that? First generation comes from nothing. They appreciate what they have. They work too hard to get it. They instill those exact values in their second generation. The second generation then has the third generation and tries to instill the values in the third generation, but they can't impart the wisdom in the third generation of what it was like when they grew up because they didn't grow up like their parents. So then the third generation has no perspective whatsoever, and that's usually when things go awry. Again, the worst generation of legacy is always the third generation. And if you go back through history, go back to the Gilded Age, when you talk about the wealthy families and people like that, most of the wealth was squandered by the third generation. The third generation always squanders the wealth of family fortunes. That's how that works. However, Arch Manning said a lot of great things at SEC Media Days and did not give off the vibe that he was third generation. He is a 5-star. We know he committed to Texas, as Cam Newton said, to develop as a quarterback. He focused on that more than anything. And I'm not the biggest believer in Steve Sarkisian, the head coach who wins games, but I am a believer in him, the quarterback developer. He coaches the pro-style offense. He coached it in the NFL. That's what Arch Manning wants to learn. That's how Arch Manning wants to grow in this system. And I think Steve Sarkisian is going to do that for him. So we're going to play our second 4 downs of the day from Arch Manning showing humility by addressing expectations. And 4 downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford. Once again, Cooper Mays asks you all to hit that like and subscribe button, and we bring you first down from Cooper Mays. Arch Manning asking about his height. Quote, "It's really weird. I really haven't deserved any of this. So just trying to play along and play ball." Now, I actually do believe that about Arch Manning. I think Arch Manning has gone out of his way to try to be humble. And I think he's really trying to emphasize the case that he wants to show that he's earning this and that he's not just a kid, another Manning. One of the ways he did that, I thought, was a misplay on his part, which was he didn't want to accept some NIL money for a while, not because he was, or I think it was to not be in the first college football video game, and it wasn't because he was asking more money. He took this grandstand of, I don't want to accept money that I haven't earned yet. Now that I had a problem with. You're earning the money maybe because you're a Manning, but you also could be earning the money because you're a 5-star. People believe in you, your talent's there, and you can afford to not accept the NIL money. And I think when you do that, you actually undercut people who may have accepted the money in the same situation as you. You set a precedent that almost places you above them on a moral stance. I did have a problem with Arch Manning doing that. I think that you need to accept the NIL money to a certain degree. He doesn't need it, but it's just to set a precedent. Okay, but overall, Arch Manning, you can very well tell he doesn't like getting too much hype because he doesn't want to be seen as the guy getting all the hype because he's a Manning. So he's insisting. He's trying to make it clear, I'm humble. I haven't done anything yet. I love him saying that. Second down is a beautiful response to Steve Spurrier. Remember, Spurrier being Spurrier, who obviously has his own feuds with the Mannings because, as we all know, Spurrier went, what was his record again? 3-0 against Peyton Manning. Didn't coach Eli. He didn't get Peyton Manning when he wanted him, and then he went 3-0 against him as a starter and made the jokes in the time when he said, I don't know why Peyton Manning came back for a senior season. He wanted to be 3-time Citrus Bowl MVP. A lot of trolling. You love that. He then said about Arch, he was talking about how Arch hasn't played a game yet. And then he said, if he's so good, why couldn't he beat out Quinn Ewers? A reference to joking about Arch Manning not being able to beat out Quinn Ewers last year. Arch, to his credit, responded to that and said, quote, Steve Spurrier is a great coach. And is he in the College Football Hall of Fame? Yeah, he's here. So I'm just worried about myself and trying to get better each day. That's that. Talk about brushing things off. You have got to love the way Arch Manning handled that. But speaking of Spurrier's comment, it does actually lead us to a third down from Cooper Mays. And it's about why Arch Manning chose not to transfer. Because Arch Manning actually explained why he chose not to transfer from Texas, even though he was going to have to sit 2 years. By the way, he's a Manning. He's a 5-star. A lot of schools would have gone all out to take him. Staying for 2 years as a backup, many players and quarterbacks wouldn't accept. We give T. Martin a ton of credit for choosing to stay 2 years at Tennessee in the 90s. Arch Manning deserves the same amount of respect. His quote on why, though, just it speaks so highly of him. He said, quote, the main thing was I wanted to be at the University of Texas. There's nowhere else I wanted to be, whether it was the school itself, Austin, my friends, the football program. So as long as I was continuing to get better at football and like where I was at, it was a no-brainer for me to stay. Now, yes, Arch Manning comes from a certain place of privilege where he can afford to just stay and focus on college and not NIL money. But Arch Manning is, because of that, because he's guided the right way, you can see what he's thinking. He's thinking only forward of the sense of enjoying the college life. What's the best chance to develop me as a player? And how can I go win games? It's a lesson for a lot of kids because, as John Calipari said, don't trip over nickels in search of dollars. Don't throw away the college experience or your NFL potential just for a few extra NIL bucks. Yes, that's harder for other people than it is for Arch Manning, but it still matters, and you got to give Arch Manning credit. 4 Downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford. We are live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super Savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 volume Ford dealer. Employee pricing is here. You pay what we pay on all new Ford models. Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
And 4th down from Cooper Mays is this Arch Manning's quote on the SEC. Quote, my family has played in the SEC. Well, that falls under the category of duh. But then he says, I grew up going to SEC games, wanting to be a part of it. So now getting to represent at SEC Media Day, it's kind of a dream. I know I haven't done anything in the SEC yet, but that's the goal. This is the other final part about the Mannings. You can tell they genuinely love the SEC and respect the SEC more than anything else. Eli at Ole Miss, Archie at Ole Miss, Peyton at Tennessee, now Arch at an SEC school in Texas, really stands out. All of them being from Louisiana, where LSU is. Arch Manning is, funny enough, the first quarterback to be coming out when LSU was a potential powerhouse. Back when Peyton and Eli were coming out, LSU was nothing. That kind of stands out, but you got to love that quote from Arch Manning. I'm going to say this up front. I think Arch Manning will try his best to stay humble. I think he's going to work out and be a very big success at Texas. I'm a big believer in Arch Manning. The way he carried himself at SEC Media Days yesterday, you question bringing him because he's not a senior, and I know Tennessee's one of the first that does that, but he hasn't started a game yet. But the way they handled it was just such class, and I think Arch Manning could break the third-generation stereotype that I have and could defy it. So we'll see how that all goes. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. We are live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville. New and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. Hit that like and subscribe button again. Ring the bell. Turn on your notifications. Tell a friend. Leave a comment. Tell us what you think. We want you to be a part of our community at Off the Hook Sports. We are almost at 8,000 subscribers. So thanks a lot for all you guys tuning in today. Again, we are live every weekday starting at 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll be back on tomorrow with Caleb Calhoun. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook.